Hi, I'm Jodi Ferrari. I'm the Education and Audience Development Officer at Tweed Regional Gallery in Murwillumbah in New South Wales. And I'm really excited about my chat today with the artist Deb Mostert. I have the privilege of being here surrounded by her beautiful artworks. The exhibition is Drawn to Dispossess. And I'm here at Lorraine Pilgrim Gallery in Southport on the Gold Coast. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Yugambeh people, the traditional owners of this land. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and future, and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So hello to you, Deb, in your studio in Bellberg Park in Ipswich. Hello.
Hello, how are you? It's good to be on screen together, if not in person.
It's the next best thing, and I feel very privileged to be surrounded by all of your beautiful artworks here. So congratulations on this show. Deb, before we kick off our chat, I really just wanted to make a little bit more of a formal introduction to you, if you don't mind.
No, that's
so cool. Deb Mostert has been making artwork for over 25 years, and her contemporary practice comprises drawing, painting, public art and some small sculpture. Deb's work has been built around the search for collected personal objects and curated public museum collections, which can become metaphors for sacredness, shifting memory, collection and value. She holds a Bachelor of Fine Art from Queensland College of Art and has exhibited no less than 17 solo exhibitions, as well as numerous group shows in both regional and commercial galleries. She has won several awards and been a finalist in many national art prizes, including the Bale Painting Prize, the Salon de Refusé and Jack Aranda Acquisitive Drawing Award. So to me, Deb, you wear many hats as an artist, an educator, activist, environmentalist, and if I can add one more, museum enthusiast. But the exhibition that we're talking about today is a deeply personal project, Drawn to Dispossess. Can you share a little bit with me about the ideas behind this exhibition, your starting point?
Yeah, thanks, Jodi. It's been I've had a love of objects as long as I can remember, and my Dutch heritage means, of course, I have I feel a deep connection to that sort of my artistic heritage of still life painting, which has been my practice for so many years now. But I think it started to come about a few years ago. I was looking for objects that I wanted to collect. I am a bit of a magpie. I have friends who are hardcore collectors, and I was interested in the psyche of collecting, why people do it. So, and I noticed that in myself too, that I want to have things, and it's a thrill of the collecting chase, as much as it is having the object in your hand. And I was looking, I'd bought a book about metal lunchboxes of the 50s and 60s, and I really just fell in love with a particular one, a flipper lunchbox, and this is the sketchbook. I did a drawing of it, and this is when is this? 2017. It's quite a few years ago, and it was a funny thing because I was prepared to go out and try and find one of these things to I don't know, buy back a bit of my childhood and all of those sort of ideas around nostalgia. But as I was drawing it, that feeling of needing to own the actual object just dissipated, completely evaporated. And I was content to have just the drawing and the time spent with the object. So I thought, oh, that's an interesting thing that's happened. And so I just shelved that, but it came around again for my the exhibition the last show I made, the big body of work around my family's migration from the Netherlands to Australia in the 50s. And I had made sure that I knew I wanted to paint the objects, some of the things that came with them from the Netherlands. It was really important to them because they thought they were coming to the wilds of outback Australia where they couldn't buy anything, so they brought a lot of their possessions. And one of the things I painted was the Rembrandt plate. It's in the show.
Yes.
And it's a family heirloom. It has been in our family for several generations. My grandfather, Opa Mostert, lived in Delft, and they were near the factory, and so there was a lot of Delft pieces in the family collection. And so that plate came with them came over from Holland. And I had always loved that plate. As a child, I grew up with it in our family home. And but I always knew when I got to a certain age, it was told to me that has to go to the eldest Mostert son. So I knew I was never going to get that plate because it has to go to went to my father, and then it will go to my brother, and it will go down to my nephew Jack. And you know, for years I sort of harbored a little bit of, I don't know, not resentment, but just that, yeah, you know, I love the plate. I'm the artist in the family. I love Rembrandt. You know, it should be mine. You know, and all of those feelings. But while I was painting it for my show, the same thing happened. I was painting it. I'd spent hours on it. I basically did a reproduction of it, so I had the time to really enjoy it and value it. And that feeling evaporated again. So I have no desire to have the actual plate. I feel like I've spent the time. I don't even actually want the painting of the plate because I had to think about that again when I put it into the show. Well, how will I feel if that work sells? But I'm okay with it because the actual act of making it again or spending the time with it seemed to be the thing that released the hold it had over me.
It's a beautiful idea, and I think you touched on the nostalgia of things and reflecting on your childhood, because there are lots of things from, you know, the history of your family and your childhood here. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the, you know, the beautiful work here, the Skippy?
Yes, well, I extended that. Yeah, because this painting, you know, it's in my sketchbook. I'll have that forever. But I thought, I actually want to explore that a bit more. And the Skippy plate was something that, you know, I loved. We all watched Skippy as kids, you know, but it was to have something that was so nostalgic to my childhood. But we were a Dutch family, you know, in Australia as I was growing up, and it's become more apparent to me as an adult how Dutch we were. So we weren't really into collecting pop culture of Australia so much, you know. I was surrounded by art, but it was always more of a European thing. The funny things that you want as a child end up being the things in your culture, you know, what I was watching on TV. But it never came my way during my childhood. It just didn't happen. That we didn't have a Skippy plate, but many of my friends did. And so I, you know, would go and have my Vegemite sandwiches on someone else's Skippy plate when I visited their house, and thought, I have to have one of those. So of course you can buy them on eBay, can't you? You can get everything these days. You can relive your childhood, pick up all these objects, you know. And I have done a little bit of that, but in this work I just thought, well, what if I combine that flipper lunchbox, the Skippy plate, and then I thought, what's another one I'd really want? Oh, a lassie cup would complete the trifecta of my favorite childhood shows.
That artwork.
Yeah, and you know, I have this other life, drawing dogs as well. So you know, of course, you know, lassie had to be in there.
Yeah.
So yes.
And I guess, you know, these are about things that you coveted, but there's the other aspect to this exhibition project as well, which is about not acquiring more things and being able to let go of things as well.
Yes.
Can you talk a little more about this idea of dispossession?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Once I started looking at, you know, the idea of offloading things that I already had, because, you know, we toy with the idea of downsizing. I'm
looking at the studio there.
Yeah, well, you're not even seeing the really bad side of it, where the questions are. I can't turn my computer around to show you, but I might throw up some photos. And, you know, so I was looking at things. So do I need to keep all of this stuff? And I did some research, and it is actually a psychological thing, this idea of iconic transfer. Psychologists have been sort of writing papers around how they're helping people who hoard. I'm not a hoarder, but I recognize that the connection, that, you know, the pull that objects have on me, and my reluctance to let them go. So they have been, you know, seeing how this works with people who hoard, who have to actually take a photograph of the thing, or in my case, I'm drawing it, and then somehow that connection loosens a little bit, and you can maybe get rid of the object. So I thought, well, that's one part of it, but the ongoing part of it, and particularly in our culture of consumption, is like, let's just not buy more stuff. You know, like, can I not buy into the consumer culture and just say, actually, do I need that? Would I be able to enjoy it and feel some sense of spending quality time with it and honouring it as an object by drawing it or painting it? And so that has been helpful. I have actually been using that, you know, well, maybe I don't purchase something, maybe I just spend some time drawing it. And so that's where it's kind of gone. Two sides to the coin, you know.
Yeah. And the idea of letting go of things, because some of the works, they're very mundane, everyday items, but I know they hold a lot of memory for you, and again, that nostalgia from childhood or raising a family. Can you talk a little bit, like there is the beautiful, you know, the teapots here just really, really appeal to me. Some of the childhood toys, the brownie box.
The camera, no, that's right. There's a lot of things. I mean, in my sketchbook, because I kept that sketchbook of the journey, because not everything that I dispossessed, you know, really was pretty enough or precious enough to even, you know, make a more resolved painting of. So the sketchbook's full of a few more things that I could get rid of quite lightly without having to make a really resolved work. So yes, there's everything from plastic juices that didn't work well, and why am I keeping it? You know, that whole idea of William Morris, you know, don't have anything in your house that you don't, you know, believe to be beautiful or know to be useful, is a pretty good maxim, you know, and it's something that I have used. I'm certainly reasonably minimal, particularly in the household stuff. I can clear out my kitchen without any trouble at all, get rid of appliances I'm not using or whatever else. But it's the nostalgia attached to objects that makes it that much harder. Meg's little chair, you know, was sitting up in the shed. I hadn't even looked at it for years. She's 24 years old, and I still had her little wicker chair, you know, because it's not that we were ever going to use it. I mean, the dog was using it for years, and even now the dog has passed on. So, but I couldn't bear to throw it away. So it sat up in the shed. You know, we've all got stuff like that we, how do we let it go so that it can be used by someone else? In the end, I put it on Marketplace or whatever, and a young mum bought it for her child. And so it gets to live on, and as it should, you know. So I think it's that disconnecting of the value and the memory that we associate with our objects. That's what we're disconnecting from. I think not obviously the fact it's a little cane chair, you know.
Yeah. The idea really resonated with me, and I'm not sure if you remember when we first were talking about this project, that I realised that I was also sort of doing this with my daughter, my youngest Zara, who I refer to as a collector. She loves to acquire things, and everything is so precious to her. Yeah. But we're having this problem when things are damaged or, you know, when they're broken. You would normally get rid of them, and she cannot let go of them. So I started asking her to make a drawing of it, holding that memory, and then, you know, then it would be able to go in the bin, and she's got all her drawn memories. So I think it's a beautiful project idea.
It worked for her?
Absolutely. It's the way that, and it is about that transfer that you talk about, transferring the emotion to the act of drawing it. So I think there's a lot of inspiration for people there. And I guess I want to talk a little bit about, the way you draw and the way you approach drawing, because you work with sketchbooks, and then we've got fully, beautifully resolved, you know, works on linen here as well. So can you talk a little bit about is it a daily drawing practice? How do you work in the studio, Deb?
Yeah, you can see here some of the sketchbooks. It is a daily practice for me. I have one on my desk in the studio. I also carry one everywhere I go because, well, for me, drawing is it's a delight. So, you know, it's a happy place to be. And so the sketchbooks are full of it's part diary, part experimental, part, you know, a free, safe place to work things out. So the drawing, the sketchbook was just as important a part of this show as the resolve works, because to me, that's the immediate first thought, you know, I've got to remember that. I've got to write that down. My memory is not so good either. So it's also, it's a spare brain, you know, it does work as a place that I can record things so that I don't lose them. And I guess the objects, you know, because I have a love of objects and things, that all ends up in the sketchbook. But also, you know, life, people, places I've been. You know, if I'm waiting anywhere where I have to sit and wait for something, I'm drawing, because it's a delightful way to pass the time.
So would some of these drawings come from your memory of them, or you're mostly setting them up and working from life?
I'm working from life, yeah. I sadly don't have the capacity to work much from my imagination. I'm still very literal, and still very, and I work from observation. So yeah, to have most of the sketchbooks are it's all observation work, which I find hones my capacity then to make more resolved work. Your hand-eye coordination gets better, and you just feel, it helps you get in the zone for other work. So yeah, it's a delightful practice that has been part of what I've been doing for endless years. So I can't imagine not carrying a sketchbook. That's really important. But everything seems to start there, and then it expands out. So you know, you can see there's paintings. I'm doing sculpture. I'm doing other things, but the germ of the idea generally has started somewhere in a book.
Yeah. And the other thing in your books is the writing is a really important part of it as well for you. Can you talk about the notes that you make in the sketchbooks?
Yeah, definitely. I think again that's part of. There's a richer part to the process if you can be writing as well as drawing. It embeds, you know, another layer of information, another layer of memory. It's a funny thing when you're drawing. I'll look back over drawings in sketchbooks, and I can go straight back to where I was. All of this, when you're drawing, everything, sound, smell, conversations around you, all get attached to your drawing somehow. It's another mysterious thing that happens. But you know, I will often, you know, add notes and you know, obviously thoughts and feelings and thinkings to that drawing as well. But yeah, most of the time I'm content to just do the drawing and hope that, you know, everything comes back when I look at it, and it mostly does. It's really quite bizarre how it happens. I can leaf back through books. This is, you know, sketchbook at the museum, and I can remember the conversations that were going on around me as I was drawing that, because you sort of enter into another space where everything gets absorbed into the drawing that you're doing. It's different to taking a quick photo on your phone. You know, I mean, I do heaps of that as well, of course. I use photography quite a lot in my work, but there's nothing that compares to being in the moment, and it's all part of that slowing down, spending time, valuing things enough to draw them, valuing things enough to spend the time with them. I think that's what it comes down to. And even if that's as random as people walking across the street while you're waiting at a bus station, or, you know, it can be anything. People I've got sketchbooks of the garden and the wildlife around us. I've done sketchbooks about what I've eaten for 3 months, recording everything I've eaten and drunk, just to appreciate that a little bit more. Yeah. That's all part of the enjoyment of taking in life a little bit more slowly, I suppose.
Yeah. And this love of drawing obviously started in your childhood, and there is a fantastic work here, the Mr. Squiggle work, which I think is really a highlight of this exhibition. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I'm just riding on the back of the popularity of Mr. Squiggle. That's all. It's just, I mean, he's everybody's childhood, favourite, isn't he? Because he had that lovely disarming.
You got your piece of paper out every time he got there and had it upside down, ready to go.
That's right. I guess it sparked off in most children that what they already knew, that they could turn anything, any drawing could be something amazing, with a bit of imagination and a keen eye to see things. And I think that's what Mr. Squiggle was to me. So yeah, he was definitely a very early influence. But I can't claim him as my own, because I think everybody felt that way.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because it's always fascinating, we're getting a little insight into your studio. Just, yeah, your setup, your daily routine, you know, are you quite strict with your hours coming into the studio? How do you work?
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit along those lines?
I mean, I'm very thankful to have a designated space. For years, I worked in smaller spaces around the house when the kids were all growing up. But, you know, they've all left home. So I basically commandeered the biggest room in the house with the best light. So I'm very grateful for that space. So I'm down here. Well, I try not to work 7 days a week. But you know, you put the hours in because you love what you do for a start, and it actually, you're running a small business as an independent artist, so you just have to, you know, be a bit practical about spending the time. I spend way too much time in front of this machine. The computer tends to take up, your admin takes up a lot of time, but yeah, it's a delight. I have different stations around the room where I work on different projects. So in that respect, yeah, I've got sculpture happening in one area and oil painting over there, and you know, so I can be moving around in a quite a good sized space, and not having to pack things down and set things up again is a real joy. So yeah, it's wonderful.
You mentioned you've got wildlife roaming in, some some ready-made inspiration coming in.
Well, I had to oust a magpie who flew in. He actually walked in, yeah, as you do, through the door, and I had that watercolor work of the albums that, you know, the 3 albums that we were going to dispossess, some of the and I had it up on
when I came into the show. It's great.
Yeah, and it's a watercolor, so I thought, oh no, don't, you know, I can clean up an oil painting but not a watercolor, so please don't, because it's been hours and hours of work on into it. And he wandered in and he jumped up onto the, you know, the air conditioning unit and left a mess there, and he flew around for a bit before I persuaded him to. There was nothing to see here. Out you go. But yeah, the wallabies, in the dry weather we had wallabies coming right up to the house. So you know, we're back onto some bushland. It's unfortunately slated for development, so we're trying to advocate for the animals that live here, because we have koalas, and there's powerful owl, and you know, there's a lot of important wildlife here that we would like to advocate for, you know, for their habitat. But we live in a reasonably dense populated area. It's just that all of the property around us is quite large acreage blocks, and so there's room for wildlife, you know. So when they start developing it and chop it up into tiny little pieces, there's no room for habitat. So yeah, but now I feel I very much enjoy living this close to a variety of neighbours who are, you know, apart from their sometimes poor toilet training, are delightful to live with.
I wanted to ask you then about your COVID experience, because I know for a lot of artists, not much changed. You know, you already sort of were in lockdown, already working in quite an isolated way. Perhaps for you, it's been lack of access to the museum, because I know that's a part of how you work. Can you talk a bit about what your lockdown experience has been like and ongoing challenges?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, for a lot of us artists, you know, we were maybe born for a time like this, in that we often work in solitary spaces. But having said that, you know, we're all missing the contact with other artists, with being able to go to shows, being able to get out to, and for me, the museum is a large part of that. I was going weekly and had been for several years, just to be in that space and to be documenting what goes on there. And so I really miss that, but you know, what do you do? That's the space we're all in now. We have to make changes. So it has meant that I've had to think about things differently in terms of this sort of thing. You know, here we are doing a Zoom. I wouldn't say I'm a Luddite, but I'm certainly I don't embrace the digital thing. I've been slow to embrace the digital thing, and but it's a wonderful platform to be able to talk like this and then share this with a wider audience.
Right, and you've been making some fantastic videos. I wanted to let people know about your beautiful sketchbook flip through for this exhibition, drawn for this project.
Sure.
And then you've been also making some great instructional videos and talks. So there is a lot, you know, a lot of engagement that can happen online.
That's right. And that's the good thing. It's pushed me to engage in that space where I wouldn't have otherwise probably. So yeah, we're all very thankful that we have the computer, we have the internet, we have this capacity to share and stay somewhat connected. I'm not sure how that will go long term for folk. I suspect we can't replace the face-to-face contact that we're all missing. Certainly the physical, you know, distancing thing has been a strain for a lot of people. So I think we all feel that. But yeah, what a time and place to have to do an isolation. You know, at least we have all of this resource, and we have the capacity to still see what's happening around the world too, which is important, so that we get a chance to put our, you know, our situation in perspective, into a broader global perspective, and that I think has been a very positive thing.
Yeah. And I guess what I would add to that is just been the power of art. It's got so many of us through, whether it's been engaging online or whether it's been making art, hearing and hearing from artists that we often don't get to hear from through these online platforms has been just fantastic. But I think there is still something so important about getting in front of the real object, you know, as galleries and museums are reopening, you know, with their measures. I really encourage everyone to get out and support, you know, your museum and gallery. And obviously around Australia we're in all different stages, and around the world in all different stages. But I guess sort of to wrap up our chat, Deb, I really would love to encourage people to come and see this beautiful exhibition, because I feel very privileged to be here today in your exhibition, Drawn to Dispossess. And Lorraine Pilgrim Gallery is certainly open for viewing, so you can definitely make a phone call and have an appointment to come and see these works. And if you are coveting Deb Mostert work, you know, give into that and please, you know, come and have a look at the show and maybe acquire one for yourself. But Deb, it's been so nice to chat to you today. Thank you very much for your time. Congratulations on this wonderful exhibition. And I really want to thank Lorraine Pilgrim Gallery, Lorraine and Sel, for hosting me here today. It's been a pleasure to chat to you today, Deb, and congratulations again on your show.
Thanks, Jodi. I really appreciate you spending the time and coming and having a chat. This is nice. This is what makes it worthwhile. I think that was the disappointment with not being able to have an official opening. It's the engagement with people and talking and conversation. That's what we make work for. It's really about that conversation. So it's been lovely to engage with that in that with you today.
And I think there's a lot of inspiration from this exhibition and from the ideas behind this project, the idea of, you know, possession and dispossession. So hopefully we'll go out and
draw your stuff.
Look at your everyday objects around you and make some work. It's a wonderful thing to do. We're thinking of everybody that is in, you know, different stages of lockdown still, and hopefully you've enjoyed this conversation today. But thank you, Deb. And
thank you.
Great to chat to you. Thank you.